Today we're going to look at the presidency of Andrew Jackson, our seventh president. I'm excited to talk about Jackson, but I'm also like, rolling my eyes to talk about Jackson. I think he's a fascinating president, but I don't necessarily think he was the best human being. But at the same time, I mean, you can't deny that this dude right here is like semi crazy. I mean, like he's as hood as you get. I mean, he's straight up. He's an OG. He's an original gangster for sure. And you're gonna sort of realize that as we kind of talk about Andrew Jackson. The woman down there on the bottom, that's his late wife Rachel, and I'll like briefly talk about something semi cool with his wife too in today's lesson. Go ahead and add it to your table of contents, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. Okay, cool. So like I said, today we're going to be looking at the seventh president, Andrew Jackson, and essentially we're just going to summarize the major events of his presidency. So we're going to look at both of his terms and talk about some of the big things that happened. Okay, this is like some random information. And so like I told you, Andrew Jackson is a gangster, right? So remarkable fact, a man once attempted to assassinate Andrew Jackson with 2 pistols. However, both pistols misfired, and Jackson proceeded to beat the man to near death with his cane. He also killed a man in a duel. The guy insulted his wife. So, like, clearly, bad idea. Do not try this man's wife. He was also the last president that actually fought in the American Revolution. He joined the Patriot side when he was 13 years old. He was a messenger, and he was actually captured by the British and like tortured during the war. So he's not a great fan of England, like even years later when he's president. Okay, but let's go ahead and jump into it. Basics. Andrew Jackson, he is our 7th president. He serves 2 terms. He is a member of the Democratic Party. This is a party he sort of started, and so what you see is here, the Democratic Republican Party has split into 2. Now, do not confuse this with today's Democratic Party. Andrew Jackson's Democratic Party in the 1820s and 1830s, very different from today's Democratic Party. Like I said, Andrew Jackson fought in the Revolution, but he was a kid. He was, however, a war hero years later at the battle, in the War of 1812 against England again, and this time he was known for courage at the Battle of New Orleans. Andrew Jackson sort of goes down in history as being a president who was really committed to the common man, right? So like regular people really supported him. And when I say regular people, I'm talking about white men, right? And so before Andrew Jackson, the only people that were voting were rich white men. During this time, however, regular white men and poor white men start to be able to get the vote. And so what you see is more people are voting. Clearly not women, clearly not African Americans, clearly not Native Americans, but white men. And so it does show we're sort of getting more free. He's also the first president from the West, right? So like he's from like Tennessee, like just west of the Appalachians. And so like this shows us that our country is definitely growing to the West. And so a lot of people are excited about his inauguration. He was considered a very popular president, especially with regular white men, right? Regular common people. And here we see him being sworn in on his inauguration day, 1829. One of the first things that Jackson does when he comes into office is set up this system that we sort of still have today. It's called the spoils system. And what it essentially does is it takes most of the people that are working in the executive branch, and the president fires them and then replaces them with his own people as a reward, right? So Mr. Houghton becomes president, and Franklin, he told everybody to vote for me. So when I'm president, I've nominate Franklin to be Secretary of Defense, right? So like, watch out, because Franklin's probably gonna bomb us all, okay? Or Mr. Houghton becomes president, and Daniela helped me. She told everybody to vote for me. So Daniela is going to be Secretary of the Treasury as a reward for her help. Watch out, everybody, because like she's going to spend all her money. But that's okay. This is a spoil system. there's a couple benefits to this, right? Like, you let your supporters get in, you get in your friends, people that believe what you believe. There's a downside. Sometimes presidents try to get their friends who might not always be qualified, right? So, for example, Mr. Houghton becomes president, and he hires, he hires Daniela to be Secretary of Treasury, but, like, Daniela cannot add. And so, like, is that really a smart decision? Not necessarily, but this is a spoil system, and we still have it today. And really where it comes from is the phrase, to the victor belong the spoils, which means those who win, they get the treasure. And in this case, the treasure is getting to, like, name your supporters as government employees. Okay? So when you win, you put in your people, right? It just makes sense. So let's take a look at this quick political cartoon, right? What's the spoil system, says the poor, regular, common man. And it says it means that even we might get a job, a government job, Luke, right? And so Jackson is going to put in a lot of regular people into government jobs, right? Which only makes him even more popular. Another thing that Jackson sort of does while he's president is he kills the national bank. Right, and so this idea from all the way back with Alexander Hamilton creating the National Bank, it had been created and lived through essentially like 6 presidents up until now. Andrew Jackson says, hell no, government's too strong. He takes all the money out. He puts into the different state banks. Problem, this destroys the economy. It causes a massive recession. Lots of people lose jobs. Government loses a lot of money. But what's so interesting is by the time the economy falls off the cliff, Andrew Jackson is no longer president, so everybody just blames the next president, Martin Van Buren. But really, it was Jackson that caused the economy to collapse by killing the bank. This is a political cartoon of the era. This was actually made by the other new political party, right? So the Republican Party. They made this cartoon essentially trying to say that, like, Andrew Jackson acted like a king. He's holding a paper and it says veto. He has vetoed more bills than any other president. And so, like, he did not get along with the legislative branch. And the bank war is one example of that. The next big event that happens while Jackson is president is a major one. We'll actually talk about it again later. It's so important. It's called the nullification crisis. And so while Jackson's president, Congress passes a new tariff, right? This new tax on imports. They raise it. It's been around for a little while now. They raise the tax on imports. South Carolina is pissed. They're so angry. And so South Carolina's state government, they threaten to nullify or ignore the federal tariff, right? South Carolina's like, we're not going to pay it. They're actually led by Jackson's vice president, go figure, right? And so, they're like, we're not going to pay because this new tax really hurts us because it raises prices of foreign goods. And in South Carolina, we like our foreign goods. But Andrew Jackson's got a problem. If you let South Carolina ignore a federal law, the other states are going to ignore federal law. Jackson's the president. His job is enforcing the law. He threatens to send in the troops, right? And this almost causes a civil war. But in the end, South Carolina follows the law, even though John C. Calhoun, the guy in the bottom right, Jackson's vice president, is a South Carolina guy, and he's pissed. He's the one that writes the idea of nullification. But Jackson's like, look, it doesn't matter if you like the law or not, you still need to pay because it's a federal law. Now, to be fair, like, Congress sort of saves the day. They will lower the tariff, but South Carolina does end up paying because you can't have a state just doing what it wants. And so what we see here in this political cartoon, Jackson's on the left, and he's saying our union, it must be preserved, right? So the country's got to stay together. And then John C. Calhoun, he's like, next to our liberty more dear. So for him, it's all about South Carolina's freedom to say no. And Jackson's like, pause. the national government is the boss, and we must keep the country together. This is kind of interesting because, like, on the bank issue, Jackson was like, national government too strong. Here, he's saying the national government should control the states. So that is kind of a little bit bipolar, I think. Okay. Our last thing that we're going to look at with Andrew Jackson's presidency, and I think it's the stain on his presidency, right? While a lot of people today look back at it and say, this guy wasn't a great president, Other presidents didn't treat minorities very well, but Andrew Jackson definitely takes it further. He was a racist. He thought minorities were inferior. He owned hundreds of slaves at his plantation. He also supported the 1830 Indian Removal Act that kicked Cherokee Indians off their land and sent them to Oklahoma, where 4,000 of them died, right? So this is a guy that, honestly, if you weren't a white male, he didn't think you were good enough. And that's something that we look down on him about today. Okay. You can go ahead and take a minute or so to read this quote. As you can see here, not everybody loved Andrew Jackson, right? Some people joked and called him a king. Here, Davy Crockett, one of our Texas heroes, talks about how, to him, Andrew Jackson's not all that, right? He doesn't believe the way Andrew Jackson acts is a good thing, and he doesn't support him. All right. A kid sent this to me. It had a curse word, so I had to fix it. I saw it, and I literally rolled on the floor. Students be having all the swag in the world until you tell them to read a paragraph out loud, right? So it's it's all about your education, because people will laugh at you. You ain't cool if you're not passing your classes. You ain't cool if you can't read or put a paragraph together, right? Because how you going to be successful? And then you're going to be broke in life, and Mr. Haughton's going to look at you and go, should have paid more attention. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into some independent practice. You can go ahead and knock this out right behind your notes. And so we have a raft. So you have several options here. Go ahead and take a look at the options and go ahead and choose one. If you have any questions, Mr. Haughton's walking around. Raise your hand, let him know, and he'll help you out. You have about 15 minutes now, so plenty of time. Go for it.